Thank you for joining us this evening, and thank you so much, Swivl, for the work that you're doing and pushing our field forward. My name is Nicole Biscotti. I'm originally from New York City, but now I'm down here on the border of California and Mexico, so teaching here in very Southern California, about 20 minutes from the border. And I want to talk to you guys tonight about AI and how AI can really be very empowering for diverse learners. The first question I wanted to pose to everybody is the following. As I have a quote that I said, as educators, we have an obligation to adapt and to innovate. Our job is to prepare students for their future, not our past. And I'd like for you to drop in the chat what that means to you. I'll repeat it. As educators, we have an obligation to adapt and to innovate. Our job is to prepare students for their future, not our past. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about that in the chat. So while I'm waiting for some responses on that, I'm going to go ahead and talk to you a little bit more about my background. I'm an educator and author. I became interested in ADHD based on my experiences with my son. Struggled quite a bit in school, actually continues to do so. And it really made me aware how strong the need is for kids in special populations for support. And then when artificial intelligence began to become more available, I realized the connections and how we can use artificial intelligence to empower learners. And I really feel like AI is really not an option, it's a reality. And if our job is to prepare students, then we have to embrace it, is really my philosophy. And I want to explore with you the reasons why educators should leverage AI-powered tools and resources to support diverse learners, as well as fostering self-advocacy. So please note that in this presentation, I'm going to refer a lot to ADHD because that's my wheelhouse. However, there are parallels to all special populations. I also would like to point out something that I think is fundamentally really important to recognize with this work, and that's that at different times, we all need special support. We don't have to have a diagnosis to need support on certain days, that's for sure. A lot of our students come to us with invisible disorders, like, for example, ADHD or autism, that aren't so obvious to us. And without the proper training, we're not always aware of what students exactly need from us. A lot of times it's going to have to depend on their cues that they're giving us. And sometimes they're not always so easy to read. If we look at the fact that AI, well, first of all, let me back up for just one moment. I want to address sort of what I call the elephant in the classroom. And yes, Kathleen, 100%. I love what Kathleen said. I'm going to interrupt myself for that one. Before we have children embark in AI, we need to empower learners with an understanding of how they learn, to give them a voice of who they are and what they aspire to be. Absolutely. And I feel that AI used appropriately can definitely help us with that and with those conversations with students. And also taking the idea of I provide you support to I'm going to empower you and coach you to learn what supports you benefit from and how you can access them yourself. So that's a huge shift that we can offer our students. But first, I'd like to address the elephant in the school. And I call the elephant in the school the fact that not everybody really wants AI in classrooms. And why do you think this is? I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. So if you guys could please drop your thoughts about why education is hesitant as a field to embrace AI. Some of the considerations that people talk a lot about are screen time, connection, and movement. After the pandemic, there's been a lot of backlash sort of against technology in a lot of places because we had kids on screens all day. There's been a lot of talk about learning loss. In my opinion, it's really not learning loss. It was connection loss that we're suffering from. However, it does not equal screen time. And I think that that's important for us to see as we move along. So what does AI offer in education? Well, the good is that it offers enhanced safety measures, an opportunity for collaborative learning. Remember that when we went on that break that nobody ever came back from in the pandemic, that I was really surprised when we went online to hear from some of my really quiet students. It was a really cool experience to have had them in the classroom and then have them online and see the difference in who's shared and the quality of sharing that I was getting. And then also we can have more learning, less compliance, and less teacher burnout. For the slide, I'm actually on 11. So the threatening. Teachers are worried about kids cheating. A lot of people make comments about that they're, kids are going to cheat more. I just always would like to point out, or always do point out, that I cheated sometimes in high school and I was very distracted and I didn't have a cell phone, much less Chat GPT. I think that when kids cheat, it's an opportunity to look at why they're cheating, because there's always a why for every behavior. And then a lot of people are also worried about technology replacing teachers, or if it's going to spread bias because it's not, well, AI has been shown to have a lot of bias, but then again, humans put the information out there, right? And I like what, I'm just not sure if I know how to say your name correctly. Jillian, I apologize if that's incorrect. Some educators are fearful because they will have to change the way they teach. Absolutely. I'm 47 years old. And when I grew up, I remember getting an answering machine in my house, and that was a big deal. I'm from a generation where when people were outside, they were just outside and you couldn't reach them. And it's interesting to me how much we have had to, in our generation, and even the younger people, to adapt to. But that's the reality. And it's exciting at the same time, because if we embrace the challenges that technology brings in terms of the changes, and we learn from the younger generations that we have contact with, it is really something that keeps us relevant, keeps us growing as educators, and makes us better teachers. So, and the overwhelming, let's talk about that. Where do we start? What are the capabilities? How should we consider implementing this? What are the legalities? So there's a lot of things to think about, right? Like, it's not just a very casual thing to bring all of this in. So I want to point out something that my friend Vernon Wright, the Wright leader, said. He said, many advancements in life have been met with skepticism, fierce pushback, and in some cases, outright rejection. Some of those advancements have become commonplace today as calculators, computers, and automobiles. So there's always a resistance to anything new, right? Like, as human beings. And it's important to note that people outside of education have noticed the benefits to education. So, for example, the government has noticed. There's a research team from the University of Virginia, that's been tasked with identifying the benefits of AI in education. Businesses are using AI to train their employees, and parents are starting to ask how AI can be used to help students in IEP meetings. So there's a lot of, it's not just us in education in a bubble, but society is moving in this direction. The way AI supports diverse learners. So what can diverse learners specifically get from AI, quick reference. And I like what Jillian said. I really do not see it as cheating, but answers a basic question and answer a paragraph or a topic. Exactly. Because what are the skills now that people need? Is it reciting facts, or is it taking information and being able to synthesize critical thinking? So it's not like we have to hide the answers under a piece of paper or something, or gatekeep that. It's really more about taking information, because we have so much information available to us, and learning how to consider sources and create something innovative with all these different sources of information. So in specific terms, like, for example, Chat GPT, and there's, in the slides, I have a couple of graphics and charts so that you can look at them with more time and really think about how they might apply to your classroom and your setting. However, just to give you kind of an overview, ChatGPT or Bard, all of those AI programs can be used as quick references. So dictionaries, translators for our ELL students, that sort of thing. They're also great for kids that are struggling with executive functioning issues. So you can actually type into one of those types of programs and ask them to give you, like, you can tell them what your tasks are. I need to write an essay. So for that kid that doesn't know where to start and maybe wasn't listening when the teacher scaffolded, they can, without having to ask the teacher again, they can ask, if I'm writing an essay about, I don't know, automobiles in the 1950s that has to be persuasive, how would I start? And you can get steps for that. It's also great because as a teacher, I'm able to show my students. So for those kids that have accommodations where I need to give them step-by-step instructions in print or in writing, I can show them, hey, I can access them right here, and so can you. So that's really empowering for students. Another thing is that we can create, so those visual aids, the summary. So for the kids that get lost in the readings, sometimes it's really cool to have a summary, or have a summary of each paragraph, or each chapter or each section, or ask AI to create an outline for you as you're going along so that you can follow. You can even show a kid how to ask AI to make a comprehension question after each paragraph, just a simple, quick one to kind of keep them engaged. And again, none of the things that I'm mentioning are cheating. None of them are giving anybody an answer, but they're giving them support. And remember, people are less likely to cheat when they feel like they can learn on their own. Most of the time, if you think back to any time that you yourself may have cheated as a student, it's because you're kind of desperate, right? Like you don't know what to do. You can't figure it out. Oh my God, you don't want to get a bad grade. So I really feel strongly that when we support kids and show them how to be advocates for themselves, they're less likely to be interested in cheating. The other thing is technical skills. So one really cool thing is, and like personally, I'm a writer, but I have to be honest, I've always struggled with poetry. So one thing you can do is you can take a story and you can ask ChatGPT or Bard or any other similar program that's with AI to change the genre. So can you take this story and please write it as a poem? Please write it as a narrative. Maybe I'm a student that's not understanding the difference between an expository and a persuasive essay. I can ask the computer or AI to give me an example of an expository essay and then ask it to now change it to a persuasive. So by changing genres or styles of writing or point of view for the author or anything I want that we're trying to show kids in ELA classes or in Spanish classes, like what I teach, we can show them how to access that themselves. The other thing is that it helps us to become better writers, which of course helps us to become better communicators. And you can even ask for different stress management or mindfulness exercises as well, without having to ask another person, which might be embarrassing for some kids. So what AI offers educators is quick reference. Like it has made it so much easier for me. Like I teach Spanish, right? So now I don't have to go hunt for the perfect text. I don't have to spend the time writing the perfect text. I can just ask ChatGPT, write, I don't know, a paragraph about technology, comparing and contrasting technology in the past and the present, using both the preterite and the imperfect tenses. And it'll do it just like that. So, and then I can say, okay, write 3 multiple choice questions. So I can just get a quick check for understanding from it, or I can have it be fill in the blank, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's literally infinite. So a lot of the things that I used to have to hunt around for, or sometimes pay for, I can now generate myself quickly. The other thing is that when we think about teaching, I read a study recently, and I believe I referenced it here in my presentation, Teachers report that they spend, I think it was 32% of their time doing mundane tasks. That's very significant because when I'm spending my time doing mundane tasks, I'm not connecting, I'm not supporting kids, and I'm not doing all that magical stuff that teachers can do when we take some of the burden off of ourselves, right? So I've found that it really kind of takes away some of that mundane, busy work stuff and gives me more time to focus on lesson design and kids. Somebody mentioned supports, and I have some more detailed information about that in the presentation for you to refer to. I would like for you to think about how you can incorporate AI into your practice to support diverse learners, because a lot of times we hear ideas or we go to PDs and it's like, okay, yeah, that's cool, lady, but I'm not really sure how that's relevant to me. So if you could think about looking at some of these charts, how you could apply it in your classroom, and maybe just try 1 or 2 and see how it goes. I have a question here. Do your students or specials feel empowered, ESL feel empowered? Yes. And kids really think it's cool that I'm not like, you can't use that, it's cheating. Because I hate to break it to everyone, in case you haven't noticed, they are using it. So now it's like, okay, let's just get that out of the back. We all know that you're using it, and let me show you how to use it to actually support you. And then the other thing is that we all become educators because we want to help kids. And I want to know from you guys, what are the challenges that you feel when you're providing support to so many to kids with so many different needs. Like I know what challenges I'm seeing, but I'd love to hear any of you would like to share about what challenges you're seeing. I know Vince said to raise your hand, but I can't see your hand.
Yeah, if I see anybody, I'll definitely let you know. But yeah, I don't.
Thank you. I can't actually see the hands. I don't know
No
what view
problem.
I'm in, but it's not that view. So, in the presentation here, I have accommodations listed in a specific way. So there are also accommodations that can be suggested at IEPs and 504s. So for example, presentation accommodations, changing the way that information is presented, because all supports come over certain, like these categories, or can be seen in these categories, right? Listening to audio recordings instead of reading text. Learning content, this is on slide 23. Learning content from audiobooks, movies, videos, and digital media instead of reading print versions. Working with fewer items per page or line, etc. And there's a whole list here. The other category of support is response, the way that kids respond on a test. And I know, like, myself as a teacher, I kept hearing about we should do alternate assessments, and I didn't really know where to start with that. So here's some ideas about how we can change how kids respond to things, and giving them the tools to do so with AI. The setting, how we can change the setting even using AI. And then the last category of support is timing or scheduling. And then this is another, there's other ways that you can here listed here that we could use AI to support that. On slide 27, I have 20 ways that students could use ChatGPT. And in all honesty, I shouldn't have written ChatGPT because Bard and all of those types of programs do the same thing. Yeah, here's a slide. So there's some reading and writing tools, there's math, there's homework, studying and time management, literacy skills, and STEM. Now, I just want to tell you that these were written with ADHDers in mind, and I'm going to say that they are helpful to most kids. If you really want to blow your kids' minds, you can have this up in your classroom because most students don't feel like it's okay, like I said, to use it. Jillian says that her international students were using it best. And that's really interesting to note that in other countries, maybe there's a little more open, I'm not sure. One thing that people that need support usually struggle with is how can they feel more empowered? And how can we as educators empower them more? So opening these conversations with our students about how AI can be powerful for them and give them that ability to help themselves and access support when they need it is really critical for them. The other thing, of course, to remember is that technology should never take center stage. It should always remain a support. And again, just going back to those conversations, if we want students to be engaged, we have to be willing to engage with them. This is the way of the world when our students go for job interviews and go to different places to work. They're going to be increasingly exposed to AI and expected to know how to navigate it. The more we can become relevant with what's happening right now and show them how to integrate those technologies to support them, the better relationships we're going to build and the better we're going to be able to support them. And then one thought that I'd like to leave you with this evening is the following. ChatGPT takes care of mundane tasks so that teachers can focus on more challenging activities. Why don't we view that as beneficial for students as well? If we think about that, why do we not want to cut out some of the mundane things in learning, like factoids, and let them focus on more challenging activities? Really, why are we resisting that? And I think that that's something that we all have to give a little bit of thought to really have the proper lens to approach this. Again, this is a very short presentation, but in the slides, there are more resources and a couple articles that I've written. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or if you want to brainstorm together, or if you have a certain situation that you want another teacher to talk through with you. And I'm happy to do that.
Thank you all for your time. If there's no more questions, we'll end for the evening or afternoon or morning, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you so much, Nicole. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for initiating these conversations.